You are the chosen one.
Hello, this is Corinne, your hostess again. Today we'll be reviewing Demon's Crest. But we're going to start off by seeing Firebrand's first appearance in his own game. Here he is, black and white on the Game Boy, as he's told he needs to hurry and get out of there because the dimensional portal is going to close. We see our hero come out, jumps up a little, flaps his wings, but he can't stay hovering. He can shoot basic fire attack, he can hover for a very short period of time, just long enough to get across that pit without getting attacked by the fish. Can destroy some things in 2 hits, some things in 1, as he can't quite just go over there wherever he wants. You have to choose just the right spot. And money in this game is actually represented in jars, soul jars if I understand correctly. You have 2 hits, as you can see one of those little balls went away. And the little W stands for your wings, your power to be able to hover. However long that stays means you can hover just that long. There are some familiar enemies from Demon's Crest, such as the little fish, the stationary flames of Flame Wheel, and even some zombie ghosts. This video will assume you've watched my Let's Play, but you don't have to. You can still jump and climb up walls. That tree looks a lot like something from Monster Party, if you ever played that game. I tried to get that heart, but yeah, I missed that, because you can't really see down far enough to see exactly where you are, and your wingspan's not good enough. Then you hit that guy, and you're dead. And then it says ready, and start back from the very beginning of the level. Because this was Gargoyle's quest. It's actually an offshoot of Ghosts and Goblins, and in fact we see here a baby Firebrand, his first time showing up on the Super Nintendo, right there, right beside Arthur. Not really, but here we see a full-grown him. It's a red armor, is what it actually is, one of his race, but you can't really do that in the game either. You can't really fly up wherever you want, swoop low, smash humans, because, well, they've all been dead for 1,000 years by the start of the game. However, that little guy will be helping you, and he was pretty good then. Gargoyle's Quest actually came out in 1990, and Gargoyle's Quest 2 came out in 1992, finally showing up in red in the US. And then in 1994, finally he got his own game on the Super Nintendo. All of his powers again, bound to minimal, where we can play him going through treacherous mountains filled with deadly plants and destroying platforms, cities where we can smash everything from skulls to windows, temples full of everything from spikes to axe-throwing enemies, and even frozen mountaintops with skull-throwing enemies and underwater sections filled with all sorts of fish. There's a little bit of everything, including a little bit of a nod to Super Ghosts and Ghouls, wherever that clip was earlier, with that little blue imp. You can summon him using a spell that'll make it so that he follows you around until you're out of mana, or rather, actually, until you're out of money. The only thing that really matters to that little guy. You can even use some magic to summon the Grim Reaper himself, which is a pretty powerful effect. It'll kill every mook on screen. Every mook on screen. But then there's a little bit of a problem. While you are weak against water, this section then would look like a platforming section, but you can't platform in this game. There's no power that doesn't have wings that can't hover infinitely, unlike what we saw with Gargoyle's Quest. You can just jump up, jump again, and your wings are flapping, you're flying. Even the power that doesn't have wings, it can't make the kind of jumps that would be, so it's just pointless. And here, this is the final level. Those enemies up there, they laugh, they can't have any chance of hitting you. They're cute, but this is the final level, and they still think that floor traps are a problem, which is just kind of a problem. And then when they try and compensate for your flying, your ability to go anywhere you want horizontally, they give you these vertical shafts, but by this point you have the aerial gargoyle. So though there are spikes on the walls, you just hold the A button and you're floating up. All the enemies may as well just be stationary targets with big red bullseyes on them. There is a power that could get around this, the claw, where you shoot it at the walls and you can stick to that spot even if it's spiked, but by that point you've already got the aerial gargoyle, or you're about to get it, where you just jump up, you hold the A button, and you fly up and up and up and up. And considering that right here, right down that vortex on the left, is where you get the aerial gargoyle, and right here is where you get claw, it's a decision, which you get first. And as you'll see in just a moment, the aerial gargoyle just completely rocks on this boss, known as the Flyer. I'm speeding this up a little bit for time's sake, but it's really not all that different of a fight. It's not all that hard, and now it's no longer useful because you've already got the flying gargoyle, the aerial gargoyle, so claw doesn't really matter. But boss battles. Boss battles are really where this game pulls it off. In fact, the game actually starts off with a boss battle. We see in the background, Demon Dragon Sumolo peeks in, sort of stomps off, and then before you know it, your very first enemy encounter, your very first encounter of anything in the game, as that gate pulls up, is the Demon Dragon himself. After a very brief little chase, he opens his eyes and starts shooting fire at you. Hit him in the head a few times, sped up obviously, and you're out. You think you're free, finally able to leave the Colosseum where you've been trapped for 1,000 years, sleep, but as soon as you get far enough away, you're told that's simply just not true. There's the Demon Dragon right there, breaking through, and roar, he's right back to fight for more. In this form, of course, he's so pitiful you just fly over and shoot him in the head, but it's sort of like you start out at the very end of a Zelda dungeon to show you why you want to get to the end of the Zelda dungeon, because there you go, you're going to get a piece of health right off the bat of the game. You start off with 4, which is very forgiving for an early, getting used to the game, and then you get 5 right off the bat. It really helps you get into the flow of things. It's a good tutorial. There's other great bosses too, like General Arma. He's a recurring encounter. You have to use all the different powers you've obtained, mostly from him and some other bosses, to really be able to have a chance against him. And then when you actually finally get the final encounter, you've got almost every power. It's such a satisfying victory, and he's even a good guy about it. You really wish it could be a 2-player co-op, because he's just so awesome. And then there's Belth, who just jumps right out of the bone pit, quirks his finger at you, and Avnunu, an awesome eyeball boss that actually chases you to begin the encounter, really making you feel like there's something at stake, like this guy is so powerful. And the final boss, with its multiple forms, so chaotic that there's the spikes over there. But there is a Metroidvania aspect to it too. This power I had to use right there to get that, I just got from that same level's boss. But there's also cool things like multiple powers, such as the ground gargoyle can charge and shoot fire along the ground, aerial gargoyle can fly however he wants, and the tidal gargoyle can actually swim, avoiding the water weakness, and find some treasures you can't get any other way. There's also other cool collectibles, like talismans, such as armor, that helps you withstand damage, and a whole bunch of different potions you can put inside of urns that you find, even though they really do look like potion bottles and not urns. But this does mean you end up spending a lot of time in the menu screen, since there are so many different options. And it makes it so that while there are some times where it's cool, like for example here, I couldn't hit that guy with the normal power that I had equipped, so I changed over to Ground Gargoyle. And while I can beat Skula, this boss right here, very easily using it, I had to switch, and that was a pause that really shouldn't have happened. And with all the spells that are available, none of them really feel really worth the time to grind money or worth the time to pay for, so it kind of doesn't feel like the time to pause to use them. But when you do manage victory, one thing Demon's Crest does amazingly well is you really feel really charged about it. You feel really good about your victory. And if you manage 100% completion, finding every item, fighting the final boss and winning, you get a password that unlocks the most powerful and fun gargoyle in the game. You can dash, you can swim, you can fly, you can headbutt, and fight a very challenging super last encounter. The last thing I want to mention is the headbutting game. Headbutting is mostly used just to break open things and get some money, or destroy the area for fun, but you also have a mini game that's a lot like Whack-A-Mole, where you have these holes in the wall, and skulls will pop out, and you have to hit a certain amount in a predetermined amount of time. And the first 2 you just get money, which is useless, but you also get some health. It's mostly just a diversion from the main game. You wouldn't play it for it, but it's also there. And that pretty much is Demon's Crest in a nutshell. Cool boss encounters, some platforming elements that sometimes seem misplaced, and a whole bunch of things to find and collect. So that said, what's my final review? How would I rate this game? I give it a 9 out of 10 for myself personally. I'm wearing some pretty heavy nostalgia goggles on this game, and the controls are perfect for a longtime Mega Man player. The Ultimate Gargoyle can even charge in the same way. The flying is fun, the bosses are awesome, and the graphics and music are just amazing. But for most people, it's going to be a 7 out of 10. It's very unforgiving, the controls can be a little bit weird, and sometimes the difficulty will ramp up in really weird ways. Normally not hard stages, but sometimes some weird bosses. And unless you can find absolutely every item, which these days GameFAQs is great for, but even still, you're going to have to look it up the first couple times, and you don't get a good ending unless you found absolutely everything. And the fact that some enemies will swoop too low for most things to attack, it's a 7 out of 10 or a C+ to an A- for most people. But that said, Demon's Crest is a well-rounded game made by Capcom. Thank you for watching my review. My next game will also be a Capcom game, and I hope you'll subscribe to find out which. My name is Corinne for Choosing One Studios, and I hope that you have yourself an absolutely wonderful day.